Alright, what's going on guys? And welcome to the video. So this is going to be a really basic part 1 of the Ranger Guide. So what we're going to be doing here in the video is we're going to be going over the main points of being a Ranger, going down the skill line basically. And I do have a lot of skill points, so if it's something that I don't cover, just assume that I'm going to come back to it later on in maybe a combo video or something like that. We're hitting the basics right now. My buddy, Mel over here,
hello.
she's going to be helping me out with a lot of combos and stuff like that. She's pretty tanky, so she's going to take a hit, and she's going to make sure we demonstrate these well. Besides that, guys, if I'm going too fast, or if you guys feel like you didn't catch anything, I'm going to have timestamps and all the information you need below in the description. So feel free to scroll down if you guys don't want to hear me talk. It's probably going to be a long video, guys. We have a ton to cover. But to make it simple, I'm going to be breaking them down into priorities. So how it's going to kind of go, if you look on the screen now, I have them listed. Priority 0 is going to be something that you never want to use. Don't waste your skill points, lock it, don't use it. Priority low is going to be something that you'll use it often, but for the most part you won't be using it on every combo or off cooldown. For priority medium, it's going to be something you're going to see yourself using in almost every single fight, or it's just simply a good tool to have that you want to spend your skill points on early. And then lastly, being priority high. These are going to be like the max out first skills. You're going to want to pretty much use these for your core damage, your survivability, or maybe they'll have like a buff that you're going to be relying on. So, sorry for the long intro. We're going to go ahead and hop right into it and get started. Alright guys, so moving into the next ability, just below the tree, is going to be Dagger of Protection. So Dagger of Protection, as shown by Mel, it's stationary, it's unprotected, and it does next to no damage. 100% guys, you gotta lock this. The only melee abilities that you should be using whatsoever are going to be coming from your Awakening. Alright guys, next ability down the line is actually going to be Moving Shot. So for Moving Shot, there's nothing special behind it guys. It's going to be priority medium, because again, it's kind of like bow skill. You're just going to get a little bit of extra auto attack damage from it. But something to note here is make sure you don't accidentally press spacebar while using this ability. It's going to look something like this. So it is a beautiful looking evade, right? But unfortunately, in reality, it's unprotected and you're going to get yourself caught trying to do it. So just keep that in mind. Alright guys, next ability down the line is actually going to be Evasion. So make sure you guys lock this one. It's slow, it's unprotected, it uses a ton of stamina, and it's going to make you stuck in the animation. Alright, so next ability down the line is actually going to be Breath of Air. This is going to be a priority low ability. Reason being is it's more for skilled rangers, people who have a better understanding of the class. It's something you're going to add to more complex combos and kind of finishing off things. So we're going to come back to it later on in a more advanced video. But here's kind of an example of what it looks like. So you left click and then shift right. So let me actually make sure this is on down here so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. And a precursor, when you guys see mouse function 1, that's actually going to be the F key. So for things like Crescent kick. So again, an example of this is left click and then shift and right click. Left click, shift and right. And as you can see, adding this on to the end of a combo will actually do a pretty good amount of damage. And for anybody who's curious, she does have 286, you said, DP?
283.
283 DP. So it's pretty good. It's a pretty good little way to finish off a combo. Alright guys, so next ability here is actually going to be the bread and butter of being a ranger. It's going to be Charging Wind. So as soon as possible, you're going to want to get Absolute Charging Wind, and then Absolute Extreme Charging Wind. These are going to be absolutely crucial. The shotgun doesn't really do a lot of damage until you get these two abilities. So just a few things to remember here. You can actually mess it up. What we showed you guys before was when you're doing Moving Shot and you hit space and left click, you're actually going to do a little bit of a kite there. So you want to make sure not to do that. Yep, it's also a level 60 skill. So keep that in mind for some of you guys who are watching this video early on. The reason why I was making sure you guys make this connection is that you want to make sure to left click and perform Evasive shot rather than performing Moving Shot. Because if, again, this is how you do a shotgun. You left click, move, and then spacebar. Really simple ability, but again, you can't mess it up pretty easily by going like this. Next ability is going to be Crescent Kick. So, lock this, guys. It's going to be priority 0. It's absolutely terrible. Again, it's not only a melee, but this is not the way that Rangers initiate our float combos. Just below that, guys, is going to be the ability Razor Wind. So the only reason I have Razor Wind level 5 is because it's used for the Rabam Roaring Arrow. It's not a very good source of damage for PvE or PvP, but later on in another video, we're going to show you a really good way to combo that. The way to do Razor Arrow is you just press E and you hold left click. So just below Razor Wind is going to be the ability Pinpointing Gust. Sorry, Pinpoint. So this is going to be a priority 0, guys. It's going to be the least damaging ability that the Ranger has in their entire kit. And the reason why you're going to lock it is because if you accidentally press it during like your Q cancel attempts and stuff like that, you're actually going to be stuck in the animation and you're going to stop moving in that direction. So just make sure to lock that, guys. Alright, so just below Pinpoint is going to be the ability Dash Kick. The only reason this is not locked is because it's a really good way to go into your Call of the Sky combo. Sorry, Call from Sky combo. So for anyone who doesn't know, Call from Sky is a really good super armor. And what super armor means is that you're going to be completely immune to knockdowns, stuns, floats, and stiffness. It's a really great getaway, but what you need to remember is that the dash kick portion of Call from Sky is not protected. I'm going to show you guys the combo it right now. So you run, you click F, spacebar. So while you're in the actual air, it's a super armor, but the dash portion is unprotected. So imagine as if there's a charging bull coming at you, and you have to make sure that you're actually airborne by the time that bull makes contact. Alright, so just below dash kick, guys, is going to be Evasive Shot. So Evasive Shot is going to be a high priority because you're going to want to be able to max it out as soon as possible, because the higher levels gives you more distance. So Evasive Shot is actually going to be your main way to create a gap and disengage from a target. So the ability just beyond Evasive Shot is going to be Sharp Feather. So Sharp Feather is going to be more suited for veteran players, veteran rangers for that matter. The reason being, it's actually a difficult combo to land. We're going to go into it into the next video, more in depth, but for here I'm just going to show you one example of it. So basically, after you land a successful attack of any kind, like a kick or a Q, you're going to hit the keys Shift, left click, and then F. So you're going to kind of do a skill cancel there. So you're going to Q, and then hit him with that. Alright guys, so the next ability down the line is going to be Explosive Evasive Shot 3. So this ability is one of 2 iframes that we have. And this is going to be your biggest oh shit moment, because you can come out of it from either Awakening or in bow form. So in any situation, if you're about to get hit with a CC or something really damaging, this is going to be your get out button. It does have an iframe, so that's going to be a 100% immune to all CCs and damage. The unfortunate thing about this ability is it has a 12-second cooldown, and it's a very brief moment, so timing is crucial. Something to note here, guys, is you do not want to level it up all the way. Keep it at 3, don't put any more points into it, because all you're going to get is 100% crit and 400% more damage, which sounds like a lot, but trust me guys, it's next to nothing. Next ability is going to be Call from Sky. This is going to be the Ranger's #1 way to evade CCs. So we showed you guys a few times how to use it here in this video, but we're going to go through a few different ways now. So basically, the main way that you're going to use it, the main way that I use it, is by forward running, left click, and spacebar. That's going to be the easiest way to use it. If you're better at timing, you can use it without using shift. An example here. So if you were to just simply run and then click once, you're going to see that your feet are going to slide. That's what you're really going to be focusing on to make sure that you land Call from Sky, is you just click once and then spacebar. Showing from there. Thanks, Mel. So here's the example of going from bow form. You just run forward, C, spacebar. And then from another way is to sprint, left click, spacebar. And then the final way is just a forward, left, spacebar. So those are the 3 ways you go into Call from the Sky, guys. So the next ability down the line is going to be a very low priority, guys. So Crescent Kick here, the only reason this isn't locked is because it's used in conjunction with the Sharp Feather ability. So you can actually continuously cast that. So I'm not going to show you guys that here. We're going to show you guys that later on in the combo because it's definitely a much more advanced and it takes a lot of timing and a really good understanding to know when to use it. Alright guys, so next ability down the line is going to be Tearing Arrow. So this is going to be a medium range priority. The reason why it's medium is because it is unprotected and it does require a windup before casting it. That being said, it does do a lot of damage in large scale into a pretty good area, and it also applies a slow. So we're going to come back to this a lot later on, so I do recommend you guys level it up, because in the next video we're going to be using it a bunch for some of our combos and stuff like that. Alright guys, so the next ability down the line is going to be Kiss of Wind. So, Kiss of Wind, I would make it a low priority, but I did make it a priority medium, just because it only costs 3 CP. Or SP, sorry, 3 SP. So, an example of how to use this, guys, it's really simple, and we're going to use it a lot in the next video. So, you can go from Razor Wind to Kiss of the Wind like this, holding E and then shift left click. Or you can go from a Tearing Arrow like this. So that is going to be a E with shift left click, or a Tearing Arrow with shift and then left and right mouse button. So there's an example, guys. Again, does a lot of damage, as you can see there. So just keep that in mind when we get to the next video. So next ability, guys, is going to be Blasting Gust. So this is going to be probably the most used ability that a ranger has. It's going to be the best way to gain distance, but keep in mind, it's also the safest knockdown we have. So while you guys are going to be tempted to poke away at your target and kite them to hell, keep in mind that it's going to waste your stamina, it's going to use some mana, and it's going to waste a knockdown. So when you can, you know, maybe use your wind stab or use like an evasive explosive shot to try to get away, and save that Q for a nicely timed knockdown. Because then you can run up and you can start up with some other combos there. Next ability is going to be high, actually very high, guys. You definitely want to try to max this out as soon as you can. The Absolute Will to Win that you get at level 60, it's going to do a lot of damage, and not only that, it's going to apply a really nasty debuff of -10 range DP to your opponent. So for the most part, really simple, guys. You walk into a direction either left or right, and you hit F. This can be spammed, which you can use pretty well for PvE. And for PvP, it does about the same amount of damage as a shotgun. But just keep in mind, it does use more stamina. The next ability down the line is going to be Penetrating Wind. So the reason why I made this a medium priority is because it was recently nerfed. Not only was the damage nerfed, it has a pretty small AoE. But that being said, it does do decent damage and has incredible range. And it also has a really reliable down smash. So I'll show you guys here. Even at the range where you can't see the reticle, you can still land the shot. Even at the distance that I am now, you'll still land it. So, there's 4 different ways to use this, guys. When you do look at it, it says that there is quick slot available. Me personally, I recommend that you spend the 3 skill points and you get Kiss of the Wind. This is just going to make it a lot more easy for you, and it's going to save up the skill slots down here. So here's the 4 ways to use Penetrating Wind. And precursor, guys, this is a little more complex stuff. So if you guys don't quite grasp this, just go ahead and skip it. We'll come back to this in a later video. So obviously, the first example is going to be using a quick slot. Mel, can you demonstrate that for me, please?
Yep.
Awesome. Appreciate you. And then the next one is going to be with a Razor Wind, which is E and then shift left click. Another way to show is with Tearing Arrow, which is going to be like this. E and S at the same time, and then shift and left and right mouse button at the same time. So here's an example of that. So as you can see, the next actually is going to be with Sharp Feather. So we briefly went over Sharp Feather, and I mentioned that again, this is also a complicated combo. So I'm going to show you guys this once, and we're going to move on. And we'll come back to it in a later video. So you hit them first with an ability, and you're going to do shift, left click, and F immediately after getting a successful hit. So that was a penetrating wind that was just fired. So those are 4 ways to use penetrating wind. The next ability down the line is going to be Descending Current. So Descending Current is going to be a very low priority. The reason for that is it's primarily going to be used only in Node Wars. So it does do a very low amount of damage, and it's not crucial because by yourself, really the only thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be feeding into people's 100%. So what I do recommend though, that people don't use very often, is to get into a group. Get about 3, 4, 5 of your ranger buddies, come into a group, and start to use this. It's going to do 3 things. You're going to waste their health pots, you're going to do a surprising amount of structure damage, and you're probably going to divert some of their, like, maybe a small force of 3, 4, 5 people to come combat you. So the optimum time to perform that little tactic there is right before a push. So right when that small group is kind of like, you see them coming to get you, you're going to bring in your main force, and you're going to go ahead and join them behind them. Next ability is going to be Spirit Healing, and this is going to be priority low, guys. For the most part, it seems to be affordable at 3 skill points each, but obviously that really does add up. The only thing this is going to do for you guys is it's going to increase your grinding speed. Each time you hit something with a bow skill, you're going to regain some of that mana. So that kind of comes into point, or it comes into fruition whenever you're shotgunning or you're blasting Gust while you're grinding. For the most part, you guys can de-level it and put those skill points elsewhere. The next and the final skill that you guys are going to be using in the primary stance is going to be Call of the Earth. So Call of the Earth is actually a really good buff to use in preparation for like a 1v1. It's going to give you 9% accuracy, as you can see here, for 10 seconds. So keep that in mind, guys. Later on in the combo video, I'm going to show you guys how you can stack 3 to 4 different buffs at once prior to going into a fight, just to give yourself that added AP. Also, before I forget, when you come down here, make sure that you only get level 8. You don't want to get to 9 and 10 because the only thing that you're getting is 6 less mana consumption. And as you guys can see, it's already an ability that takes very, very low amounts of mana. Alright, so next on the list is going to be Rage Absorption. So you really got to kind of choose what's best for you guys. There's 2 different ways to do it. You're either going to do the Rage Absorption Common, or you're going to use your Awakening 100%. It's 2 sides of the same coin, because on one side, your Awakening 100% is the most damaging 100% in the entire game. So I'm going to give you guys an example here. My buddy Mel, she has 283 DP, and I'm going to show you guys how much it burns through her. So just 1 grapple, no debuffs, pop your 100%, and it completely finishes her off. So that's one side of the coin. The other side is to absorb it yourself. So lastly, as far as the 100%, guys, you can also absorb it. So the reason why some people choose the absorption is because it really does do a lot of damage. Basically all your other abilities that you'll ever do is magnified, and you can do more with it. So looking at here, for an entire minute you get 30% or 30 AP and then 25% attack speed. So that can obviously do a lot of damage to your target. Looking something more like that, which is pretty much like, I feel like that's at least a 50% increase in damage there.
Yeah, about that. Because before it took you a lot more shots to do that.
Absolutely. Alright guys, so down here at the bottom, you're going to see your Rebomb skills. The first one you're going to get 56, and the second one you're going to get a 57. There's not a lot of controversy. You're going to want to go for Tearing Shot. Tearing Shot is not only a really reliable stun, it's also a pretty decent damage ability. It's going to slow your target by 30%, and you're going to get a plus 15 magic DP. So what I do, you're going to try to use this on cooldown as much as you can. And you're also going to use it in conjunction with your stun. So whenever you're at a safe distance and you feel that you have the chance to pull this off, you're going to go ahead and try to land the Tearing Shot. And hopefully it stuns them, and you're going to run up with a Q. There she goes. A little bit of lag there, guys. But as you can see, that's a really good engage to use. Also, before I forget, so as you guys can see, if you just press 2, it's going to immediately fire off without you doing anything. But what Mel's showing right here is that if you actually hold shift after hitting 2, you're going to be able to hold it as long as you need. So if the time doesn't arise or you don't really see an opening, you can go ahead and hold it for maybe a time that they charge you, or you see that they're not in super armor. So here's an example of that.
Keep in mind that it regularly drains your stamina.
Yeah, so it does drain your stamina a little bit. And there she saw an opening and followed it up just perfectly. Alright guys, so to finish up the primary stance, we have Roaring Arrow. It's your choice of Roaring Arrow or Fury Arrow. In both situations, you're going to be using a lot of stamina, you're going to be locked in place, and you're going to leave yourself very, very vulnerable. My preference is Roaring Arrow because it's really, really helpful in Node Wars. Maybe your team's going in somewhere where you're just not very safe. You can go ahead and take a step back, land the Roaring Arrow, get yourself a knockdown if they don't resist it. And once you land the initial knockdown, you can actually land a down smash as well. So she does have really high resistances, but you saw there, even after 2 fails, you were able to land on the down smash. Alright guys, so moving on to the Awakening, the first thing you're going to see here is the C swap. We call it the C swap because whenever you hit the C key, you're going to move yourself into the Awakening stance. The real gem about here, about this ability, is if you're moving right or left and hit C, you're going to give yourself a frontal block. So here we're going to show you guys a little bit of, or a few examples of how to use the frontal guard. So go ahead and hit me something. Alright, so there you guys go.
Okay.
Go ahead. There we go. Alright guys, so moving on down the line, it's going to be your Spear Shackles. That's going to be your grapple. So this is going to be kind of the bread and butter of most of your openings for your combos. So usually before you actually lead up to this, you're going to want to try to add a super armor. So if you're going for somebody, you're going to want a Breezy Blade, Rushing Wind to the grapple. And if you can't do that and they're coming at you, let's say they're pressuring you, you're going to want to kind of throw like an Elven's Rage at them and then grapple them after that. It's a good way to kind of protect yourself because the grapple is unprotected, so just keep that in mind, guys. Also, the last little note here, most rangers should have enough damage to one combo somebody. If you don't have enough damage to one combo somebody, just check the next video, and I have a way... Alright, ready? 120 DP? Sorry, 120 AP. So you were able to get up or not? Almost. So moving down the line here, we have our initial buff. So for a lot of other classes, we would call this E. So for us, it's a shift Q. What you're going to get here is 30%. You're going to get 30% movement speed, evasion, critical rate, and 500 mana recovery. So you guys should really use this whenever you guys are completely out of stamina, or you feel like you need to gap close, or you feel like you need to get some distance. So let's say you've used all your stamina and he's about to pressure you. You can do one of two things. You can consume it and get some distance, and as you can see, my stamina isn't being consumed. So you can either rush in at this time, now that you have full stamina, or you can go ahead and try to get yourself some distance, and then start with some attacks. So one of the last abilities here that are passives for the Ranger in the Awakening stance is going to be Wind Step. So Wind Step is going to be a really good way to either close in the gap. If you're in the bow stance and you want to rush in, you can just hit right click. Another good way is if you're just trying to gain some distance, you can go ahead and try to do like this. I recommend gaining distance while backstepping and then wind stepping rather than just doing the Q, because as you guys can tell, the Q uses a ton more stamina rather than just backstepping a few times. I would say it probably uses half the stamina. That being said, remember guys that the wind step is only an iframe every 3 seconds. So go ahead and try to follow it up with a S block iframe, and then maybe if you feel like you're safe, you can pull another few iframes when it's unprotected. So just keep that in mind, guys. So the first two abilities that you see here, the sword training and then cold blade, the only thing we're going to cover here is that it does give you some buffs, guys. So the sword training, which is just your auto attack, you're able to get a buff from 3 swings. So 1, 2, 3. You're going to see that you get ranged AP plus 10. And the other one you can get from cold blade is 1, 2, 3. And you get another ranged accuracy rate. So just keep that in mind, guys. I do not recommend leveling up cold blade. It's going to be a very low priority. The only reason you should level it up is if you have an excessive amount of skill points, because you do get up to 11% accuracy. Next ability we're going to cover is Breezy Blade. So primarily, I use Breezy Blade as a super armor for the most part. But if you are in close quarters, you can go ahead and try to combo it in for a quick attack. But what's really going to be good is for the next ability. The next ability being Rushing Wind. So these go really well hand in hand with each other. The reason why I don't usually use Breezy Blade for damage is because Rushing Wind does a lot more, and it already applies the movement speed along with other things like attack speed. So an example of this is here. And you guys can see that's very difficult to dodge, and that actually does a lot of damage for somebody. So there's two different ways to use the Rushing Wind. The primary way is using it after Breezy Blade, like this. So as long as you're heading in the forward direction, you hit shift and left click. And after you hit shift left click, you're going to hit right click. Like that. The other way to use it is holding spacebar. So as long as you're moving in the forward direction with a Waltz of the Wind, like this, you're going to be able to follow it up with a Rushing Wind, just like that. So you're going to do Waltz of the Wind, and then Breezy Blade. Next ability is Wailing Wind. So Wailing Wind, as far as PvE is concerned, is great. You get your mana back, flowing it with the ability Tempest, like this. Perfect. As you can see, it doesn't really do a lot of damage, but for mobs, it does. And you did notice that it is a knockdown. I highly recommend that you don't use it for a knockdown, because it takes time and it's unprotected. You're going to get caught out of it for sure. So as far as PvP is concerned, it's an extremely useful debuff. You can use it for PvE as well. So looking at the buffs here, it's 20% increase to critical hit rate and negative 20 to your enemy's ranged DP. So if you lead up using just that and then follow up with some shotguns, your shotgun is going to do so much more damage, as you guys can see there. Next ability that we're going to cover is Waltz of the Wind. So Waltz of the Wind is used all the time during PvE. If you're focusing mainly on PvE, you're going to want to get a skill add-on that gets you mana back per hit. That's something that's really recommended for most people who are hardcore grinders. Other than that, I use it a lot to go into my shotgun combo. So I'm not trying to make anything too complex here, guys, but if you are level 58, you can get the Flow Piercing Wind, and that'll lead into a combo that we showed you previously, where you just hold spacebar after the Waltz of the Wind. So the next ability is Vine Knot. I primarily use Vine Knot in PvE, just to get myself some extra kill potential and faster grinding. The reason why I don't use it in PvP, also by the way, use it with the F key. The reason why I don't use it in PvP is because I much prefer to land something like a Q for that extra debuff to get more damage, rather than using my abilities faster with the 20% attack speed.
But you can do something like that.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're going to show you guys some combos like that in the next video, because you can do some pretty good stuff with Waltz of the Wind. So just keep that in mind. The last ability we're going to cover here on the right side is the ability Heavenly Knot. The reason why this is a priority 0 is because it's 100% personal preference. Me personally, I use it after a grab because it gives you a little bit extra damage. I'll give you the example here. So after a grab, you're just going to hit spacebar, and you're going to swap yourself into your pre-awakening stance. And then you can just land a Will of the Wind and a shotgun, like that. And you can see that it actually does a pretty good amount of damage. If you weren't to do that, you know, by choice, you can say you want to save the skill points, which it's 30. I totally recommend. You don't need it. And it would look something like this. So without Heavenly Knot, you would simply C-swap after the grab, like this. So you're only missing out on about a little tiny bit of damage, and it's just about the same speed. So one of the last abilities we're going to cover here is Elven's Rage. So Elven's Rage, as far as PvP is concerned, it's a really good forward guard. The reason why I'm only calling it a forward guard is because the super armor is pretty unreliable. It's only on attack. So we'll give you a little bit of a demonstration here. Go ahead and hit me. So as you saw, I did immune that. And the reason why I say it's really unreliable is because the only time that you're actually in super armor is from right there. So any time before that, you can easily get caught with a knockdown. And as we've said before, with the Flow Tempest, the same goes for here. You do not want to use Flow Disillusion. If you're doing PvE, It's a really good way to get mana back from this, and then damage from that. But for the most part, leave it out of your kit when you're fighting somebody. So this next ability, Nature's Tremble, is going to be the core. This is going to be your go-to ability for damage. And the thing about this is, although it does a lot of damage, you're going to want to use it as one of maybe your first, second, or third ability in your combo. Because it does give you that minus 15 DP for 10 seconds, and a forward guard. The thing about the forward guard, though, is you don't want to use it when they're not on the ground, or just kind of using it like maybe if someone's coming at you, you're trying to like defend from a ranged attack. I don't recommend doing that because it is a 21-second cooldown, and it's your crucial damage for most of your combos. So just keep that in mind. Alright guys, so the last ability that we're going to cover in the Awakening stance is Regeneration. So Regeneration, you're going to get at level 59, and it's honestly going to complete you as a ranger. It's going to be a super reliable down smash and a somewhat reliable knockdown. The reason why I say somewhat is because it is unprotected, and using it on somebody won't always get the knockdown for you, based on how much resistance they have, which leaves you vulnerable. Another thing to note though, that's really, really important about this, is it has some of the strongest skill add-ons you can get. So we'll go into skill add-ons in the next video, but for the most part, you guys can see there, plus 15 attack and plus 20% critical rate. So using this early on in the fight, maybe before or after Nature's Tremble, highly recommend it. You're going to do insane amounts of damage. Alright guys, that was a super long video. I had to make sure that I absolutely covered everything. If there's something I did miss, we're going to make sure to have it in the comments below. And if you guys have any questions, I have a Discord link below, and if you guys want to see me do these skills in action, or you want to just stop by and hang out, I do Twitch stream every single day. But I hope you guys really did enjoy that video, and I hope it was helpful. Maybe even some veterans learned some new things, because it was really nitty-bitty. You make sure to hit absolutely everything. And I hope you guys, I hope I catch you guys on part 2. So take it easy.